I was just watching it on the way over. I just saw your clip on Instagram.
Yeah. 2 days ago, Alex Jones put up a video, 600,000 views.
We're live.
We're live.
We are live.
We're live.
Welcome back to Slick and Thick, ladies and gentlemen. Brought to you by Ruby's Flowers, WI.com. That's Ruby's Flowers, WI.com. It's your boy, Thicky Smalls, the funniest man you never heard of, Gerard Michaels. And to my left, at 6'3", 200 pounds, and every single one of them is a problem. The master of punks, the Tamer of Sages, the king of the ring himself, the one, the only, the great one, the greatest one, Mickey Gall. How we doing, Mick?
Doing great. Happy to be here.
Not only you happy to be here. I
decided on next episode, I'm doing the introduction.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Why don't you introduce our guest then? Give it a test run.
We have the great, the innocent Sal Greco in the house.
Sal Greco. What's up, Sal? How you doing, man?
It's great to be here, Gerard. It's great to be here, Mickey. I mean, maybe I should call you Brock Lesnar. I mean, I know you're a MMA star.
He wishes.
Yeah, he wishes. I mean, I'm also 6'3", but today I feel smaller. I just feel a little smaller.
No, you're looking good. You're looking good in the suit.
Look at you, bro. Yeah.
Little heel turn.
I feel like a slob up in here.
Yeah, slob on.
Right, your little heel turn.
Little heel turn over here. Speaking of heel turn, Sal, why don't you tell the people in your words who you are and why we need to hear your story.
All right, well, we'll start where I was a New York City police officer for 14 years. I served my city with distinction. I have an unblemished record. And then along the way, I became friends with the infamous Roger Stone. Roger Stone is my friend, and this irked certain people in the police
department. Give a little background of Roger Stone, because I just watched his. He has a documentary on Netflix called "Get Me Roger Stone" that I just watched this weekend, and I really familiarized myself with him. But tell us a little bit more about him.
So Roger has been in the political field for over 40 years. He's been an advisor and friend to President Nixon, Senator Bob Dole. He was an advisor and a friend also to Ronald Reagan. And, of course, he's been a 40-year-plus friend, and he also worked for President Donald Trump. So he's the most well-known for being Trump's advisor, Trump's friend.
Now, you said the infamous Roger Stone.
The infamous.
He's not always been on the he's fine. He's as I like to say, he's a habitual line stepper. Is that correct?
Habitual line stepper.
He's as the late great Charlie Murphy would say, he's a habitual line stepper, right?
Yeah, he's one that he's not afraid to sling mud. He's not afraid to be in the mud. He's a mudslinger, we'll say. He gets in the midst of things and he gets under people's skin. And sometimes people like to call him a dirty trickster. I mean, he's never called himself that. Other people have labeled him that. He's definitely not that. I've always seen the real Roger Stone. There's always the other side of him. Some of it you saw in the documentary, but he gets a very bad rap.
I enjoyed the documentary. I really enjoyed him, like, as a character, and
that's him. He's a character.
Yeah, I thought it was great.
And you notice, President Trump said it himself. Roger's a character. Everybody knows Roger. They call him all these things, but he's
fired him, rehired him, fired him, rehired him.
Yeah.
Well, that's how it is with them. One minute they're getting along, next minute they have a small argument, and then they're hugging again. It's just the way it is.
Yeah, he seems like he gives zero fucks.
That's how it is.
You know what I mean? He really gives zero.
Roger is as straightforward as could be. I mean, people see him a certain way or in a certain light, but I'm telling you, he's Sicilian like me, and he's very much Sicilian in the way he
Roger Stone
is Sicilian. That's
no shit.
Yes. Oh, on his mother's side, he's half Sicilian.
Is Stone his real last name?
I think
it's like me. Like, my mother's a Santoro. His mother's probably has a vowel in the end.
Yeah, his mother has a different last name, but he always says he's Sicilian from the waist down.
There you go. That's right.
Is that? I'm gonna give it. Yeah, that's probably what he put in his want ads that got him in trouble back in '96.
Yeah. Well,
is that how you guys met? Did you guys meet reading want ads in the back of Men's Fitness? Or
the funny part, I met him on of all things. I met him on Instagram. It was 2018. It was early 2018, and I was on Instagram, and I started following Roger because I've known about Roger for many, many years, back from the 90s or the 80s and 90s. And then I followed and I kept hearing his name being mentioned, and I was a big follower of Alex Jones. I've been watching Alex Jones for many years, and I said Roger's on the show all the time. I'm like, but what is the problem they have with Roger? And they were trying to say this whole Russian collusion nonsense. They were trying to say that Trump is involved with this, and Roger and other advisors, Paul Manafort, and all this crazy stuff. So I go on his page, and I'm like, see the comments, and Roger says, he puts a picture up, and he's like, whatever, I'm longtime friend of President Trump, and then on the bottom you'll see all these crazy comments and people cursing him out, wishing him death, his family. You're a traitor to this country. I mean, this is long before he was indicted, man. He wasn't indicted till January of 2019. I'm talking about early, 2018.
What was he indicted for?
They said that he lied to Congress.
Okay.
Lying to Congress, which is, I don't even know what kind of crime.
Is that perjury?
It's a white-collar crime, I guess.
It is, but it's pretty hilarious where our congressmen, our politicians lie nonstop all day, every day.
Constantly talking out both sides of the mouth. Constantly contradicting themselves.
But if you lie to them, straight to jail.
I think that's going to be a theme of this podcast, kind of the selective rule following.
The selective rule following.
You're on to something.
The selective rule following. Now, for people that don't know, obviously, fans of the show know that one of the great things about Slick and Thick here is that we'll talk deep into geopolitics, and then we'll also talk about eating Pop Rocks out of a chick. So, we go back and forth here,
Oh, my God.
But for people that don't know, Roger Stone can almost be considered, for better or worse, I go both ways with him, right? He might be the father of modern politics. He could be known as the father of modern American politics.
From what standpoint?
From the standpoint of going low to win. Doing whatever it takes to win. Mudslinging, taking it to a level that's there was a time in America that was kind of post Tammany Hall. We had World War I, World War II. The country was very much together. And then, there were some cracks in the foundation, let's say. Remember Eisenhower, when he was leaving office, says, you guys better do something about this military-industrial state. Truman, Eisenhower was a Republican. Truman was a Democrat. Truman, who basically empowered the CIA to become what it is today, 10 years later goes, I probably shouldn't have done that. The CIA is too powerful. Republican and Democrat both telling you, watch out for the deep state. And now you have people for a very long time not admitting it. You had Kennedy. Everybody knew he was running around with Monroe. Nobody would report about it. It was kind of like that détente, right? And then Roger Stone says, nah, if it happened, we're talking about it. If it didn't happen, we're talking about it. And that's kind of, where we are in American politics today. One side goes, the other side goes further, the other side goes further. There's no real good guys in this, but Roger Stone really is one of the first people to kind of break that détente, and really bring in this kind of, if it bleeds, it leads.
The commercials you see with don't elect this guy. This guy's a blah 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 blah.
Yep, exactly.
He kind of revolutionized that.
Yeah,
he did.
So. Yeah,
he did.
He has a hand in all of that.
Yeah.
But you say you see him as the godfather of, let's say,
he had a hand in Watergate as well.
He wasn't involved in. He just happened to be.
He was amongst.
Yeah, he's one of the low. I think he was a staffer or something. He wasn't really involved, but he was brought in. He's on that list. He was one of the people they questioned.
And listen, I'm not negging Roger Stone. This is something he's almost proud of. He says he's Machiavellian. It's very very. He
said it's better to be infamous than to not be famous at all.
Stone's rules.
Stone's rules. I got a whole list of them on my phone. I looked them up after watching the doc. I was like, I love this guy.
Yeah, he reminds me of the Al Davis. Remember the old Raiders coach? He's the
win,
Al
baby,
Davis.
Win.
Just win, baby.
Yeah.
Just win. The ends justify the means. The unfortunate thing is that the Democrats went and took this to a whole nother level.
But I would say that I believe the godfather of the movement was actually Roy Cohn. Roy Cohn is...
Okay.
And Roy Cohn and Roger were also very close. And Roy Cohn was also...
Saul Alinsky would want his hat in this ring, too. The rules for radicals would want to be mentioned,
that's the opposite side. But Roy Cohn was Donald Trump's personal attorney at one point.
Yeah.
And Roy Cohn was also part of with the McCarthy, and he was an anti-communist, as you know. And Roy Cohn was really a guy. If Roger is today's version of what you saw in the last 40 years, Roy Cohn was the one that really started it.
Yeah.
He was writing articles. He wrote his own articles for the New York Post he didn't even know about. He was ghostwriting. He would just tell a reporter what to write.
The tragedy is...
Writing about himself.
The tragedy of Senator McCarthy was he was right in the begining. There were communists that had infiltrated the government.
But that was all, again, Roy Cohn was spearheading the whole movement. He was the lawyer doing all the work. Mm-hmm. And then eventually he became a criminal defense attorney. And
Christian, look it up if you can. I think it's Alger Hiss. It was FDR. He was an advisor to FDR, and it turned out that he was an operative for the Kremlin at the time. Alger Hiss, if I remember. Alger Hiss. And so McCarthy was right. There were communists, and they had infiltrated the government. They had infiltrated state legislatures. But where he went crazy is,
You don't hear about communists that much anymore, unless you're talking to you.
No, well, you know
what I mean? Like
they've
they don't
rebranded.
Like, school.
They've rebranded.
Like it's not. It's like the McCarthyism was like all about craziness. Like he was so over the top, and
because it did.
You know what I mean? Like,
it ended
like,
that
put
way.
It down.
It did end that way.
Yeah.
It reminds me of the Dark Knight, right? You either die the hero, you live long enough to see yourself become the villain.
Yeah,
it's very similar to that.
That's a great movie.
Yeah,
almost like my life has become.
So you were the hero, and now you've lived long enough to see yourself become the villain.
That's right.
So you grew up in Bensonhurst in Brooklyn, New York?
Grew up in Bensonhurst. That was 18th Avenue kid. I grew up over there. I was born there.
18th Avenue kid.
That was
not a lot of cops coming from that area.
You'd be surprised. That's the 62nd precinct, by the way. But you'd be surprised how many cops are in federal agents or whatever in law enforcement actually came from this area.
Now that area of the country is more readily associated with anti-police activity than with police activity.
Yes, it was very much working people. You also had organized crime figures walking around and running things. You had law enforcement. You had doctors. You had it was. The whole neighborhood was mixed, but everybody kind of understood what everybody else was doing. But we all learned to just mind our business. Especially me, I was just a young kid, and I was just I wasn't even allowed past the block, I believe, until it was a certain
Who was
age.
kind of controlling the block when you were a kid? You were coming up.
Well, I would say more of you respected these figures. We'll say they may or may not have been in organized crime, but the police, you would see them come and people had respect for them and they would say hello. This isn't the police that you see of today where there's all this hostility going back and forth. But back in that day, they were around and they would come out of the car and say hi to you. And, everyone had a rapport.
Community policing.
No matter what. Even if, we'll get into my case, but like if there was a alleged organized crime figure and there was a cop in the car, they would say hello to each other because maybe one guy doesn't like that a certain person or maybe someone who's a criminal is standing on a corner doing something.
Right.
Whether you don't like this guy or you want to see he's an alleged crime figure or whatever, but this person reaching out to the police officer who now can do, hey, what are you talking about? As a guy, that's our corner. You understand? So you have extra eyes in the street. Yeah. I'm not saying everybody's working with each other, but it was like an understanding back in the 80s that to
protect against the real bad guys.
And I haven't seen that since. And if the organized crime figures get out of hand, look, you saw they all went down one by one. I mean, Rudy Giuliani came in and he really tried to clean that up.
Yep.
First as an attorney, as a prosecutor, and then as the mayor. He did a great job as a mayor. But then, of course,
talking about a guy who was a hero who lived long enough to see him. I mean, this was America's mayor, and for people that don't know,
they got him on Borat. Almost pulling his pants down.
They got him.
Gotta be.
They got him. They got
him bad there.
Set him up
and whoever got him with putting the motor oil on his head before the press conference. Come on, Rudy. But it's not the Rudy I remember. The Rudy I remember was there during 9/11. The Rudy I remember. Look, New York City. For people that don't know, I'm a little bit older than you, and I'm a little bit younger than you. New York City was a no-fly zone from when I was growing up. Like it was. My father would hold my hand when we were walking through Midtown. I'm talking Midtown Manhattan. It's like Times Square. Like there was no Chelsea. There was no Dumbo. There wasn't like these places, there was no meatpacking district.
Concrete jungle.
Meatpacking was full of hookers and heroin.
Yeah.
Now it's Gucci.
Squeegee men.
Yeah.
Squeegee men were everywhere.
Yeah. So what's crazy is those squeegee men, they turned out to be the recidivists. The whole idea of the broken windows theory. Correct. These guys, they took these guys off the street. And the news at the time were like, "You're picking on these crazy homeless guys. What's wrong with you?" But it turned out these were the rapists and the murderers. They got rid of the squeegee guy, and all the crime went down.
Shit!
The nickname for these kind of people is, we call them in the police department a skell, and a skell is society's criminal element. That's where we would grab these guys, and you'll see a lot of them. The guy in the corner that's a crackhead and stuff like internally you always feel bad for another human that does it. As a law enforcement guy, you go, we can't be having this on the corner. But if you bring him in, there's all kind of bureaucratic nonsense. Oh, he needs to go to the hospital. He'll go to the hospital, stay in the hospital for days. Who's paying that tab? New York City taxpayers. So you see how it's like a system that it needs to be completely revamped. But it's
better than the catch and release they got now. They got that guy that got arrested for assaulting a woman. This was about a month ago.
I saw that.
Guy got arrested for assaulting a woman on the subway, gets arrested, gets tagged, gets released, pushes a woman in front of a subway car that same night.
Crazy.
That's insanity.
Crazy. I never had that. When I was a cop. When you were arrested for something, unless you got a desk appearance ticket, which means you were something low level, they were holding you and they would put you through a system. So you go to booking and you would be held at least to see a judge, and the judge would. The reality of bail reform is the judge should have the final decision. Oh, should we release him? Should we, does he have to pay $15,000 to get out? He's supposed to make, or he or she's supposed to make this decision as a judge. And they took this away, saying we have all these mitigating factors, and just let him out, because even if he killed somebody, unless he killed somebody, we're just going to let him out.
So this is one of the issues that test my philosophy as a libertarian, because as a libertarian, I believe in bail reform. Because if somebody can have bail for a crime and somebody else can't afford the bail, then that crime only exists for the poor. It doesn't exist for the rich.
Yeah.
Right? Like if you...
I think like you, actually. I actually like his idea. Your problem, though, is that in New York City, in general, these criminals like to take advantage, knowing that we'll always get out, and they'll just continue. It
does.
Continue.
It tests your tolerance for this. I mean, you look at San Francisco. I mean, San Francisco's insane.
Oh yeah, San Francisco.
It's insanity.
Plus, everyone's taking a dump in the street.
They're robbing cars in front of the courthouse. It's like Grand Theft Auto.
Yeah.
I mean, it's out. I mean, it's like you almost got you got to respect it.
$990 worth of stuff, right? So like checking the price tag. Like, yes, I could steal this. Yes, I can steal this.
They're walking around the Walgreens with a scanner. Like, all right, I'm good. See you tomorrow.
I'm under the limit.
I don't even think you're allowed to prosecute the guy. They could just have a store.
They're definitely not allowed to detain him.
No, so
that's for sure.
So if any one of us own the store in San Francisco, and then someone walks in and goes, I just feel like taking all these things off the shelf.
Yeah.
You can't do anything.
Well, this is one of the things.
I've been watching this woman who will, when people just fill their bags up with stuff, fill their purses up. She's mostly catching women, and she's like, "Empty your purse, like empty your purse." Like she'll grab their purse and like make them empty it.
Just a normal citizen, like vigilante.
No, I believe she's a store owner. Gotcha. Or she has some function in the store. It's like I'm happy to see that she's actually like.
Well, that's what's going to end up happening. It's going to be like rooftop Koreans all over again, and it's going to be like, somebody tries to steal your store, and all you're going to hear is.
Yeah, I'll send Omri a link for that so we could. But
so there's another one in Chicago, Lori Lightfoot, who just is the first mayor in 50 years not to get reelected due to, of course, racism and misogyny. She Beetlejuice, Sid the Sloth over there. She made it so that you cannot engage in a foot pursuit of a suspect. So you see the suspect
wave.
You see the suspect come out. Somebody comes out with a bunch of Rolexes.
Can you power walk? Like, can you just keep it like under the limit? Is it like
hey, get back here
under 5 miles an hour?
And don't do it. Don't. I'll get you next time. Like it's like a stare down.
Just use your gun.
The guy just takes off.
Just gingerly walk over.
Can you imagine? Can you imagine crazy. How fat? Can you imagine how fat the cop was? That was like, Lori, I got an idea. I know how to make this city safer, and the foot chases gotta go.
Wasn't she a prosecutor?
Yeah.
So she knows how this works, but she's like anti-police. So it's unbelievable.
Again, this is Stone's rule. Now Soros maybe took what Roger Stone did and is taking it to the next level. Soros figured out, why am I spending $100 million for a Senate seat when it cost me $1 million to get whatever prosecutor I want all over the country, and then the laws only exist if my people prosecute them.
I tell you, he's an evil genius. That guy is an evil genius.
He wants the world to be a certain way, and he's willing to pay to see it, and that is something Republicans, libertarians don't do.
Nope.
So for all the bitching and moaning and the whining and complaining all of us do, we don't pony up.
Nope.
You know what I'm saying? Who you're going to tell me that there's not rich Republicans out there?
There's a lot of rich Republicans.
You're going to tell me there's not rich libertarians out there? You're telling me Peter Thiel?
But as Roger always pointed out, these are the country club Republicans. Mm-hmm. So they're not going to want to be on a Trump, they're not going to be wanting to support Trump or give money to Trump because they're the country club Republicans. They like the way things are from the past. Basically, it's a two-party duopoly. It really doesn't matter who's in charge because they're all in the big club, and we're not in it.
George Carlin. It's a big club. You ain't in it.
Yeah, we were a brilliant guy. Love the George Carlin. But, we're just regular folk. So you can't have regular folk making decisions or being involved in any decisions. You're not elite. That's how they view you, and that's the country club Republican.
I do on a certain level believe that to be true. I don't really think there's left and right Republican or Democrat anymore. I think that's just that's wallpaper. There are globalists and there are localists.
That's right.
There are people, and this is why I like DeSantis. You know what? I can't stand New York. I can't stand Brooklyn. I can't stand Jersey. I go down to Florida. It's fucking Shangri-La down here.
It's nice.
It's great down here.
Ron's a very popular, he's a very popular governor. He is popular all over the United States, but I'm a Trump guy. I'm going to stick to Trump no matter what, even with all the psychoticness that's happening this week. With
your Trump support has literally not just cost you your career; it's cost you your pension. It's cost you your reputation.
Literally. So we meandered from the story. We were at your friendship with Roger Stone.
Yeah.
So I'm friends with Roger Stone. So this irked some people in the police department. They started a little investigation prior to January 6th because originally someone went to them and stated that I was Roger's security because there were pictures of me going to the courthouse with him. Now, granted, if you look at me, I'm 6'3". If I walk out of here with either one of you, maybe not you, but if I walk out of here with you.
Oh, fuck you.
If I walk out with you.
I'm your security guy.
That's right.
You could assume that I would be his security. But then you're trying to say because I'm 6'3".
You're my security.
I'm 6'3" and I work out, okay? So now I must be security. You make it all these assumptions and they're all false.
So the impetus of your friendship with Roger Stone was that you guys connected on Instagram. And then you were supporting him during his
entire witch hunt, all of that stuff.
Okay.
I'm a friend of the family. I became very close with Roger. I'm very close with his family. I know Nidia very well. I know his daughter, his son. We spent Easter. We spent Christmas together. This is a real family friendship. Not I'm his work. I'm not working for the guy. I'm not a security. I used to spend my own money. I've always spent. The only times there was any kind of money exchange was Nidia, his wife, reimbursed me to come here, I think, right after he was commuted his sentence, when Trump commuted his sentence. I came here to spend the whole time with his family. We were celebrating that. So she reimbursed my hotel. She says, I wanted to pay for the hotel. I paid it anyway, and she reimbursed that. And then a second time I came here, the car had broken down. So I rented a car for all of us, and then I paid for it, and Nidia reimbursed me.
So, there was no expectation or anything. It was just...
So this charge that they're trying to say was uncompensated security, it all came from this one guy who came in as a disgruntled cop, and he's just angry that he was transferred to places. This is how the NYPD works.
It's kind of a personal grudge with you?
You just got to remember what a cop, NYPD cops, you know who's the worst enemy out there? Not the people in the street. It's the cop next to you. Because that guy might turn around and start making allegations up, and then it sparks this whole witch hunt that ensued. So then a letter came in right after January 6th. Because obviously, listen, I was in D.C. with Roger. We were at the Willard Hotel on January 5th.
Were you at the Capitol?
No, I wasn't. Never been to the Capitol either. I've never walked in there. I know it's 2 miles from the hotel I was at, but I wouldn't know as I've never even been there. So Roger gave 2 speeches that day on January 5th. He gave one that was in front of the Supreme Court, I believe, and it was on the street. And then later on, it was in Freedom Plaza. There were 2 legally permitted events. There was nothing nefarious going on January 5th. On January 6th, obviously, when we woke up, we came out of the hotel. We did not march to the Ellipse. We didn't go to the Ellipse. We didn't march to the Capitol. Any claim, assertion, or implication that I either knew about in advance, was involved in, or had anything to do with what happened on January 6th or any day prior or after is categorically false.
No. That was the feds, not NYPD. That was the federal agents that knew it was happening in advance.
Well, and it's anything. Anyone who says that is defamatory. Okay, that's my statement. So now after January 6th, they're trying to claim this whole guilt by association. Oh, you're pictured with this guy, and this is the most insane thing, because if you remember, you mentioned back in the 80s, so if you're pictured with a organized crime figure walking past you, you're his best friend, you must know what this guy does every day. This is crazy mentality, leftists, all these online sleuths that go on there, he's pictured with this guy, he must know something. They're all now watching TV shows, believing they're detectives.
That is very, very funny. So, it was fine for you to grow up around mobsters, no problem, give the guy the badge. But as soon as you get around a politician,
Yeah. That's
interesting.
This is how it was. You growing up as a kid, you cannot, like, your neighborhood, there's always going to be someone with a record. It's just impossible not to, like, live in a bubble and say, I don't know everybody. You walk by someone or you shake his hand, they could arbitrarily say, well, that's wrong because that guy has a record. So as a cop, you got to be terminated for that.
I don't really understand the rule because I know Michael Franzese, he does a 9/11 benefit, and it's a good thing. It's a benefit. NYPD, Rudy Giuliani, they just did this thing, and I mean, Michael Franzese is
so. So if I have friends who've committed a felony, and I become a police officer, I have to have no longer contact with my former friends.
That's right. And
they have to become former friends.
Under this New York City Police Department patrol guide rule, yes. But here's the thing. It's arbitrarily done because as you just stated, so Michael Franzese, who, by the way, if he's watching, I'm a big fan of Mike. And
very intelligent
Michael,
man,
I know you're a big Roger Stone guy, and Roger says he loves that, and he says hello. So Michael Franzese, who does have this event for the NYPD, technically every cop that is talking or looking at him or associating with him is now in violation of his rule and therefore should be terminated just like I was. Because they did this whole investigation. I was interrogated twice. Okay, the first time was about an hour and a half. I heard a billion questions about nonsense. Are you his security? Are you his security? I mean, it gets to the point where
who was interrogating you?
Internal Affairs.
So it's NYPD Internal Affairs.
Yes, because a blank letter was written that said I wanted a civil war in this country.
Really?
Yeah, with some officer. I don't even know who this person was.
Is it illegal to want a civil war?
I wouldn't.
I'm just trying to figure out what's.
I wouldn't. I
thought you were worried for yourself.
I am.
I wouldn't want. I don't want a civil war, but
just asking for people who may want to know.
But asking for a friend.
So this blank letter was written, and all of a sudden it sparks this whole investigation. So they interrogated me the first time for an hour and a half. Mind you, Gerard, imagine being asked the same question over and over.
So
again.
frustrating.
It's very frustrating. And this is also, you can't just sit there and go, I have no comment. You can't say I plead the fifth. You must answer or you'll be terminated. That's how this works.
While people are being pushed in front of fucking subway cars. Yeah. Like this is the use of manpower that we need.
There's real crimes going on. Now, what you didn't know is after this, they had called one of their witnesses, which is a security guy that worked for, he was doing security on January 5th and 6th for Roger. And he literally stated to them, Sal Greco never was at the Capitol. So at this point, you don't have any criminal. You have no one saying anything to you that I'm involved in any of this stuff. But they continued. So at this point, they begin where they're now doing something where they're going to be held in contempt of court. In the NYPD, there was actually a ruling from the Supreme Court in 2019. You can look this up. That stated that you cannot unseal people's records. This is a big thing. So if you were arrested, Gerard, we can't now. No one could, and you pled guilty to something. The NYPD or any other organization in New York State cannot go back and say, you know what, we're going to look at his record today, and we're going to, even though it's sealed, I'm going to look at it, and then what I'm going to do, I'm going to use this. I'm going to show the press. So I'm going to use.
I thought arrests were public record.
Not if they're sealed.
Okay.
Sealed records. If you pled guilty after a certain amount of time, or you can make this deal with a prosecutor where it's sealed. Usually it's 7 to 10 years if nobody says anything, but they're sealed. So they unsealed someone I know, their record, and then made up a crazy thing that I was involved in narcotics. They used an administrative subpoena. It's 14-137A of the New York City Administrative Code. Meanwhile, my investigation was written with a C, meaning likely to end in a criminal referral or a criminal case. So I was a criminal case for them. They should be conferring with the district attorney in New York City. They didn't do any of this. They did not do this. They proceeded with this fugazi subpoena, and this subpoena is administratively done. So you just go into a legal bureau, I believe in the NYPD, and it's a hush-hush thing where you just go in there, you mention one thing, there's nobody to defend this, no one to represent the person they're trying to get the subpoena on, and they just hand it to you. So then they got into my records using narcotics. They wrote this, so they sent it to the phone company I was using. They used it for the Willard Hotel surveillance cameras, and they also used it for any social media. So they used this subpoena, and then they further looked at people through my phone records of people I know. So now they could say, Gerard. Okay, we're going to look at Gerard. We're going to see what he does. Oh, wait a minute. It says one arrest.
It's like they're building a RICO case against you. Or
Oh, wait, one arrest? What is this for? Oh, I can't see it. It's sealed? Let me unseal it. They did this to multiple people. So they violated a court order. Therefore, the NYPD is the true people that are they committed misconduct, not me. That is egregious, violating a court order. We all know that if any one of us in the room did that, you'd have 10 or 15 marshals waiting for you outside this studio. So they started with that, and that's how they started the second interrogation, because they were asking me all these questions over all these things that they did illegally that should have never even went to this. It should have never gone to this level. So then they brought up these charges. So the charges were that I gave misleading statements because they asked if I was Roger's security about, I don't know, I lost count how many times it was. The answer is no, but it doesn't matter. Facts don't matter to these people. There's no proof of me being security, because the second charge, they said it was uncompensated security for Roger on January 5th and 6th. That is categorically false, but that's not even the big one. The big one where they hung their hat on is this patrol guide procedure. The patrol guide procedure that states you cannot wrongfully or knowingly associate with someone who's reasonably believed to be involved in or engaged in criminal activity, likely to have engaged in or engaged in criminal activity.
Whoa.
You got to know the future.
Yeah, what?
Now, you see how broad that is.
What about like courts and justice, and what about reform too?
Remember,
you know what I mean?
70% of America has some kind of record on them, something on their record.
Right.
Wait. So
that seems like is it something that's going to be applied when convenient. If they're trying to get rid of someone, they're like, let's hit him with he shook hands with this guy who, broke the law.
It's a crazy thing.
And they don't even need to be convicted. Just likely to maybe they did something bad once.
That's a very dangerous precedent.
That's
crazy.
This is where it's written: likely to have engaged in or engaged in.
Okay, so I got to ask you, they wouldn't break your balls for no reason. Did they tell you at some point to stop seeing Roger Stone? Did they tell you did you get a cease and desist and ignore it? These guys are, they've got you in the crosshairs, and knowing the system the way I know the system, unfortunately, they don't do that unless you kind of told them to go fuck themselves at some point.
The first investigation, they said, do not contact, and they gave me a list. And Roger was one of them. They just said like one or two people, three people. And then Roger was one of them. And they said, we don't want you to contact Roger anymore, obviously, because he has a record, which is ridiculous. You're actually, infringing on my rights. As a
citizen.
You have a right, a First Amendment right to associate with who you want. Because the question here is not who you're associating with, Gerard. It's whether you're saying criminal activity. What criminal activity were we, inferring to? There is no criminal activity. He's not committing any crimes. Nobody else that's on it. I didn't commit any crimes with him. There's no furtherance of a crime. Therefore, you have nothing. All you're saying is, I don't like that you're associating with this person.
And what about reform? Like people go to jail, and then they come out, but what? Now they're just forever. You're like untouchable.
Well, you're asking a bigger question, right? Because as much as Trump can piss me off, the fact that he's about to be indicted tomorrow,
which is crazy.
Sorry, and Hunter Biden actually has the balls to sue the Delaware computer after 2 years of it's not my computer. Now he's suing the guy for illegally having his computer, which is not true. He left it behind when he was completely forgot it was there. But there is
cracked up.
Yeah, we're at a very, very dangerous place where rules. This is what happens in communist countries. So the idea of authoritarian countries. This is the idea that and we think of a political spectrum as being straight, as the far left is communist and the far right is totalitarian Nazi fascist, and they're diametrically opposed, but they're not. It's more like a horseshoe. The closer you get to the far right, it's almost the far left. The difference between a Nazi and a communist is they're both socialists. These are national socialists. These are global socialists. That's a communist is a global socialist. A national socialist is a Nazi. The rest of us are so far away from, like a Republican and Democrat are up here kind of away from each other, but so far away from these guys.
Right.
In those totalitarian governments, the number one component is membership has its perks. If you're a party member,
True.
There's rules. You know, almost Bill Parcells rules. I treat everybody equal, but some people are more equal than others.
Yeah.
That's now on a football team, that works. On society, that doesn't work. Because when you become unequal, you just start saying, fuck it. Why would I ever be good? What's the incentive of being good? If no matter what I do, I'm a racist white piece of shit, why should I be a good guy? Why should I? If I'm going to be accused of a crime I didn't commit, and if I'm going to suffer the consequences of committing crime, why don't I just commit the crime?
Yeah.
That's how society falls
Be
apart.
guilty by association. That's the whole MO of what happened with me. It's all guilt by association. But now we'll continue this part. So now this is what I was charged with. So then in the middle of this also, I like to put one point was that they actually were following me around at least 4 times. And one of them was my father had gotten sick in early January, there, right after January 6th. And I didn't know he had brain cancer, and it was terminal at this point. I mean, it was my father was 76-year-old. You want to talk about the neighborhood. My father was a very well-respected man in Bensonhurst and all over the country as far as in Italian-American communities. All of the communities are involved. My father did a lot for many people. He's a quiet man. He'll probably be remembered as that, but amongst Italian-Americans, he's like a folklore
And
hero.
for people unfamiliar with Brooklyn and New York, respect is its own commodity.
Correct.
Respect is a currency. You know,
so-
if you die a respected man, you died a wealthy man in your community where we grew up.
But now you're saying so. Unfortunately, my father gotten sick, and I was finally able to go see him a day before my own birthday. And I get in a car, and I notice there's a car following me. Now, my father's in Pennsylvania. It's where he lived. So I was headed to the hospice in Florida, and I see a car following me the whole way there. I can't.
Down to Florida?
No, not Florida. I mean to Pennsylvania.
Oh, okay.
They were following me, assuming that I would go to Florida to go contact Roger, that's what they wrote, which is insane because I was working that night. But that's what they were following me for. And I went to the hospital, and as I go to the hospital, these were the last moments of my father's life. When I went there, that was it. I mean, he passed away in front of me. And these guys, somebody from Internal Affairs followed me there all the way to the hospital. And their reasoning is because I may contact Roger. I don't know how. I'm supposed to drive to Florida and back in less than 24 hours, which is inhumanly possible. It takes about 15 to 16 hours just to drive there, another 16 hours to come back.
You tell he drives like a cop. It's easily a 19-hour drive.
Could be.
But
16, maybe. I said 16.
Yeah.
16, 17 hours, maybe.
Hell yeah.
But so these are some of the things that I was
very sorry
subjected
about
to.
your father, by the way.
Thank you.
Yeah.
But so this happened, and then so after the trial, they gave me these charges. They transferred me in what was called it's highway therapy. I lived in Staten Island. I was working in Manhattan. They sent me to the Bronx. They sent me to the Bronx along numerous other officers that they called undesirables. They don't like them. It's all political.
Oh, this is a very well known thing for the Stady who was dating Cuomo's daughter, and
Highway
Cuomo didn't
therapy.
like
They
it.
give you highway therapy.
What did they do? They
you
sent
out.
them all the way up to Niagara.
So I have a question going back to your the reason for your termination was associating with someone to believe a criminal or someone believed to be a criminal.
Someone who's likely to have engaged in criminal activity.
Okay.
No exceptions.
Are there contradictions of this? Are there? I'm sure that how could one avoid anyone convicted of any type of crime?
My understanding is Eric Adams himself.
Yes, Eric.
His brother was in a gang.
Mayor Nightlife. Yes, Mayor Nightlife has his own issues. Mayor Nightlife, when he was
His brother committed a crime.
Yeah, he was a police officer.
Just to be clear, why are you calling him Mayor Nightlife?
Well, he's the man of the night in New York City. I hear he's all over the place. He's in the clubs. I mean, that's his thing. I have nothing against the guy. I like the way he dresses. He's probably the best dressed politician out there today. In fact, he may make Stone's best dressed list of 2023.
I don't know. Gavin Newsom keeps it popping
I don't know.
at the French Laundry. It's $1,000 dinner.
Eric, when he talks about the swagger, he's got it all. He's got the swagger down. He's got the look down. He looks the part of a politician. He might break a Stone rule. I think he dresses above the voters, which is not that's a Stone rule. Do not dress above the voters. But he dresses with sprezzatura, as they say. So
A what?
Sprezzatura.
Give me that in non-gypsy.
That's Italian.
Yeah.
That's like when you dress very good.
All right.
So
Nice. Sprezzatura.
So he's Sprezzatura. So he's dressed in a certain manner. But as a politician and as a police officer, Eric Adams made it in the police department 22 years. He was a captain. He, in his book, he admitted that he associated and was compensated security for Mike Tyson, who's a convicted felon, and Louis Farrakhan, who's also a convicted felon.
Yeah.
He was investigated by Internal Affairs for 11 months. There was no further action taken.
I'm so confused. I bounced for a long time. Off-duty cops were bouncers all the time.
This has been
that's a crazy precedent with your case.
Well, that you see how the rules are arbitrarily applied here. So see how I was also transferred. So I had to go through.
I feel like there's something you're not telling us here. What are we not? Why are they breaking your chops like this? What is missing in the story?
I think it's very simple. It's they arbitrarily are trying to be the arbiters of truth. It's we don't like who you are friends with, but don't look at us. We could be friends wherever you want.
Do you think they're making an example out of you for the other Republicans in the NYPD?
Well, that could be it too. You'd have to ask the police commissioner, since she's approving crazy things like having Cardi B at the police academy. So you would have to ask her. Someone has to put a mic to her and say, so what defies who you associate with? What, how is this rule applied? Because you're arbitrarily applying.
Right. It's like a do as we say, not as we do. And when we, when convenient, we're going to use this against you.
Exactly. And we're going to unseal records as well. I mean, someone has it because they already were told not to do this, and they violated a court order, so that's being technically you're held in contempt.
So you got criminal charges. Were you found guilty?
No, they never made any criminal charges.
These were
administrative charges.
These are administrative charges. So you broke the rules.
You were terminated.
Yeah, I was terminated.
Where's your union in this? The police union.
The union leader, who's Pat Lynch, saw me out at an event and literally turned his back and walked away. That's all you need to know about the guy. He's as political as it gets. So he was nowhere to be found in any of this. I had my PBA attorney, but as he stated, this was more of a kamikaze mission because when we got to the department trial point, the department trial point, we already knew that this is a Soviet-style show trial. You're going to be found guilty because it's Roger Stone. That's basically what the whole mantra of this is. It's Roger Stone. You're guilty. You're guilty by association. That's it. That's the whole mantra of everything I went through. But in between, remember, I said I was transferred to the Bronx. So I was there for about 7 months. So you got to imagine how much money that cost me to go in the middle of the day from Staten Island to the Bronx where the Yankees are playing. There's all kinds of traffic. So they wanted this highway there. They like this. They like to torture people. Because it's a godless environment.
Yeah.
That's the NYPD and law enforcement in general.
They just added 4 hours to your day in a commute.
On purpose. Because they want to torture you.
Just to put you through it.
Were they looking to get you to quit, you think?
I think so.
Was early retirement an option here?
They just want to torture you. They want to.
And your pension's at 20.
Your pension is 20, yeah, your full pension. I was at year 13 or 14, almost 14 at that point. So when I get back, I did see the delegate, which is the guy who represents you in the union. He had told me, I think you should take this deal. They offered me to take a deal of 60 vacation days in a year probation. So if you take their deal for saying, I'm guilty of this stuff that you're not guilty of, you will lose 60 vacation days, which is they get 27 a year. So you're telling me I got to lose years worth of vacation for something I never did and be on probation. So Gerard, if you're on probation in the NYPD, which means you could come in and they could look at you and go, your socks, I don't like the color. Was that white? Write them a command discipline, which means you're going to get disciplined for it. If you get disciplined now, you're on probation. You're terminated. So basically now they terminate you for something else. So it's just a ruse.
Slippery slope.
It's a ruse.
Yeah.
So now you have to roll the dice and say, I will go to the trial. While you go to the trial, though, you get all the discovery, which is how I found out all this nefarious actions by the NYPD were being applied in my case. So then when I got to the trial was, by the way, 4 days. 4 days. 4 separate days in over a month. It started in March and it ended in April 4th. Each date was almost 8 hours of the trial. And the whole trial basically was you're pictured here, picture. There's no substance of anything because there wasn't anything. So on the second or third day of the trial, we get a surprise. Now, I haven't spoke to him, and I did not speak to Roger for a long time. Roger shows up to the trial. He shows up to One Police Plaza. All of a sudden, all these guys got in their uniform. You could tell that the whole vibe in the room changed. Here's Roger, and here came There's my friend with him, my other friend, all my friends.
Here come the cameras too.
We had a reporter there. We had different reporters we knew. The Daily News was always in there, but now the Daily News was like, wow, Roger Stone's here. I mean, Sal's really friends with him. Because they painted this picture that I don't know him, I'm security, and I'm just some flunky cop. And all those years that I was making all those arrests and I have nothing wrong on my record means nothing. It doesn't mean anything. You're guilty because you're associating with this guy that we don't like. That's the mantra of this whole case. He shows up and everyone in the room they put their uniforms on. All right, Roger. Roger's here. My own attorney goes, oh my God, Roger Stone's really here. I couldn't talk to him because they told me not to, but I says, I told you. And he's like, fam, I told you this may happen. So he was there and he saw the whole thing. And during this time, you don't know who's on trial, me or Roger, because they kept referencing Roger's name so many times that you lost count. And they also referenced the president, President Trump. I was questioned about President Trump, and President Trump was also mentioned during my trial. Okay, so the trial lasted till April, and the beginning of April. It was 4 separate days. We fast forward right after the trial. Here comes a subpoena, and I look, what is this now? January 6th committee. And you're like, you got to be kidding me. Now, who's got this money? So I'm going to scramble to get money together. I got to get a lawyer, okay, for this. And it's almost the same thing. Subpoena for your phone records. What is this garbage? I just went through all this stuff. So I had to give him, I ultimately had to answer the subpoena. I ultimately had to, over a Zoom, deal with the January 6th committee, answer all their questions, which, you're answering their questions, but basically it's the same thing that the NYPD questions were. It's based off the same program almost, the same script.
You were a freaking traffic cop 18 months ago.
I was just enforcing DWIs is what I did. And all of a sudden now I'm in first at NYPD, which now you're in front of Congress. Little old me, like what did I do wrong in life, So there I was in Congress, 2 hours you'll never get back in your life, and you answering these questions. And through this whole procedure, Gerard, and Mick, the main thing here was they used all these subpoenas, unsealing records. You had Congress, you had congressional pressure. And you know what they all stated at the end? And it says it in my file, but they don't want to tell you this, but it's there. There was no criminal wrongdoing on my part. NYPD agrees and said that. So did Congress. And for that point, so did the DOJ, because we're not involved there was no nefarious actions taken by me or Roger. So Sal Greco did nothing wrong. So why are we at this point? Why are we at this point where now you're going to terminate me? Because ultimately what happened is after that, a couple months later in August, I got a knock on the door and they stated, I'm sorry, Mr. Greco, you've been terminated by the NYPD. And it said on the letter, it's a police commissioner, it's rubber stamped by the police commissioner, so she agreed.
What's rubber stamp mean?
Rubber stamp means a police commissioner. Nothing in this police department, NYPD, happens without the police commissioner's knowing and approval.
She signed off on it.
She has to sign off on it. Everything that happens in the police department, the police commissioner must know. Anything that they tell you is an absolute lie. The police commissioner, you can't even get transferred without the police commissioner's permission. The police commissioner's rubber stamp has to be on anything that happens. So there was, and the judge had stated that I have to be terminated from the police department because my continued employment with the NYPD would be corrosive due to my relationship with Roger Stone. So we'll fast forward because I filed a lawsuit immediately, but then I amended my lawsuit a couple of weeks ago. And
so you countersued?
Right away. But the problem here now is I have a comparable argument with this one. So as I was stating before, the police academy or the NYPD had an event. It's called Girl Talk. And their guest of honor is none other than the infamous rapper, actress, known gang member, very adversarial to the police department, fights cops in the street when her husband or boyfriend's being arrested, Cardi B. This is who they bring to the police academy for Girl Talk. Their excuse is this is a mentorship or a community service. Here's the problem. You cannot wrongfully or knowingly associate with someone who's reasonably believed to be or likely to have engaged in criminal activity. Correct? There is nothing in this patrol guide procedure that states there's an exception for a mentorship, or there is no exceptions to this rule. So when she's invited to the police academy, you have to know that the police commissioner has to sign off on this. Nothing can happen. The police commissioner gets briefings every morning. Every morning she gets a briefing on what's going on in the police department, who's being investigated. Something like this is a major occurrence. There would be a letterhead that would state, you know, Cardi B's coming to this. You have to be blind or, you know, maybe not paying attention to realize this. That's how this works. So their excuse now is that the police academy chief, Juanita Holmes, was the person that invited her. And ultimately now she was switched from being a chief to the commissioner of the Department of Probation. So she's actually getting rewarded.
Is that a promotion?
That's a promotion. She's actually making more money. But they're trying to say that she's the fall person for it. But that's not how
they
this
like
works.
shuffling her around
Shuffling
to kind
her
of
around.
skate. Yeah.
It's like kabuki theater. Oh, look at this. It's all political theater. But so the police commissioner would have known about this. The problem is, though, Cardi B being there, who's a convicted criminal and a gang member, an adversarial to the police department, she was ushered around.
But in fairness, she got some bops.
Well, yeah, I know she has, you know, what is that term?
In fairness.
WAP.
WAP.
Yeah.
She's got some
No,
bops.
listen, I have nothing
She got some wet ass pussy.
She does.
I have nothing but love for Cardi B.
Innocent until proven wet ass pussy.
Well, listen, I don't mind what she does. I think she's.
Would you smash Cardi B?
Not really.
No? You're not taking it down?
No, that's no.
Mick?
Too plastic surgery.
I don't know. I just don't.
Too much offset?
Too much offset.
Too much offset?
I guess being around I've learned that now you can't be around somebody that has.
Yeah,
a record.
I mean he's in big trouble.
That's what it is.
Yeah.
So,
maybe that'll get the record. Maybe it's a double negative. Maybe two wrongs make it right.
I don't even think shaking her hand would be appropriate at this point. So you even be, if I buy her one of her CDs or whatever, any of her music, that would, I am not associating with a convicted criminal.
That's it. You're out.
That's,
Gerard, would you?
What?
Would you?
Come on.
What?
Come on.
Well, I got good news for you guys. Bring out Cardi B,
ladies and gentlemen. Sal, hold it right there. We got to pay some bills, and then we're going to answer some questions in the comments, and we'll come right back on Cardi B. All right?
You got it.
You know who loves Cardi B?
Who?
Rudy's Flowers. WI.com. Ruby's Flowers. WI.com. At Ruby's Flowers is a new hemp company started by hemp growers that grows and sells hemp derived from THC products. Their goal as a company is to provide the highest quality, most affordable hemp-derived products that can still get you high legally. Very important here. You might be done now, Sal, if it's not. Our two flagship products are high THCA hemp flower and Delta 9 THC gummies. The high THCA hemp flower has been selectively bred to have below 0.3% Delta. No, you don't give a shit about that. Visit www.rubiesflowerswi.com. That's www.rubyesflowerswi.com to purchase an eighth of high THCA hemp flower for only $35 or 100 milligrams of Delta 9 THC gummies for only $20. If you want these products at an even better price, subscribe to their Patreon at patreon.com/rubiesflowers. That's patreon.com/rubiesflowers.com. Anyway, back to the program at hand. This is Slick and Thick. We're having a good time with Sal, Greco, Mick, Slick Mick, the ruler. And now we're going to add Ron Barber, the legend Ron Barber, to the mix. But first, Amri Han, what's going on in the comments, my guy?
Yeah, the comments are very interesting. The first question we have is from our old friend Runaway Slav.
I can't wait to meet Runaway Slav.
Runaway Slav.
I can't wait to meet Runaway Slav. I'm a little
Slav,
worried.
never going back.
I'm a little worried, but I'm very excited. And you say she? Is Runaway Slav a she?
I don't know why I think so, but I could be wrong.
I don't think so.
Runaway Slav 6'9" is a she?
Can't be.
It's Cardi B.
Might be.
My girl.
She's infiltrated.
My girl. My girl. What's happening, Runaway Slav? Talk to us.
Their question is, my question would be, what is the balance between rather 10 guilty men go free than one innocent man goes in versus the fact that getting away with crime only emboldens criminal behavior?
It's a great question. I can answer that one real quick. And I don't care how many people get arrested. If one innocent person is arrested, the system's corrupt and needs to be reevaluated. We can't be paying into a system that takes the rights and freedoms away from its own citizens. I think eventually people that do wrong, they continue to do wrong. We talked about the broken windows theory, recidivists, they'll get caught. Do not let free people fall prey to a corrupt system. That's my thoughts on it. Mick?
Agreed.
Cool. Sal?
I agree with you. Listen, I was part of the system, and if one innocent, I actually stopped one arrest of somebody that was innocent, and I actually had the guy let go from the command because to say this man committed a robbery was egregious, and it was someone that pointed him out, and that person was a little sketchy as it was. So I don't believe in putting handcuffs on someone that did anything wrong. I don't. If there's any malicious prosecutions, that needs to stop, and so is political prosecutions. You have to actually do some work and actually catch real bad guys if you're going to do that. You can't. This witch hunt business this has to stop. It just has to stop.
Yeah, unfortunately the bad guys are in control now, guys. Our gods have left us and our heroes are dead. What's the next question or comment from the thread, Omri?
One more comment is from Reckon It. They're asking.
Love Reckon It too. Reckon It's always doing their thing in the comments. Love you, Reckon It.
Yeah, they're just asking for Sal to speak a little closer to the mic. That's for you. And
or turn up your radio.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
They're just saying he's very quiet and they want to hear what he has to say, obviously.
It's just in comparison, really.
They're on the edge of their
perfectly
seats.
fine.
On the edge of their seats.
What else we got, Omri? Anything good?
Not right now. I'll let you know if we do.
All right. Check back in 15. Christian, you got any questions for the guys before we get rocking?
Hey, Christian,
here?
I got a question for you. Why are all of us sitting on this side and Gerard is alone over there?
It's slick.
Is Gerard trying to is this a power play by Gerard? Well, I thought it was maybe you thought Gerard was so fat that he couldn't fit Ron over there, but instead
thick.
Instead this is a power play. Is this about to be the thick and maybe slick and some guest show? Are we his fucking panel?
Yes.
What is this?
Good. Everything's going to plan.
Yeah, it's evil genius over here.
Well done, Christian. Well
Can you talk?
done.
You can't talk. All right.
No,
but you're pointing at Gerard.
He's not
like it's his
He's
fault.
not allowed to talk.
What'd you do here?
What's up?
What'd you do here?
I'm going to tell you the real tea, buddy, is we've got 3 cameras for 4 people, and I'm too thick to have a second person in frame with me. So they're going to go ahead and split that one.
All right.
There you go, bud.
That's a good
But
answer.
don't you
That's a good
worry,
answer.
because you've got a solo cam.
Do I?
We know where our bed's
All right,
buttered.
never mind.
It's the 2 of them that got to share it.
Yeah.
Speaking of wearing the Sal Greco did nothing wrong, we've got all the way from Times Square, Midtown, New York. Do you hail from New York or Connecticut, Ron? Which do you hail from?
Hey, who let the bald guy in here with the chafing head?
There it is, man.
Yes, I am from Times Square, 46 and 8th.
What's happening?
Thank you for having me here.
We have actor, comedian, a provocateur.
I love this
Ron
studio.
Barba?
I love what I'm seeing here. This is fantastic having Sal here. I met Sal in New York City at the Friars Club.
Yeah.
Famous comedy place, historic comedians. And we were at a party there. He told me his whole story. Became good friends. And he happens to live down here now. And I'm down here for a couple weeks. Playing tennis hurt my heel, so I said, "Okay, let me get on this podcast." So yeah, and somehow
You playing tennis, not pickleball, by the way?
He's wearing the shirt, though.
That's what I heard.
Look at that shirt.
Sal Greco did
everyone needs to
nothing
get a
wrong.
shirt like
Where can
this.
they get them?
HelpThisNYCop.com.
Here we go.
What do you need help for? Why do you need help?
This NY Cop. First of all, you're going to get us flagged for false information here. Clearly, Sal Greco did a lot wrong. Clearly, the state
Depends
said
who you
so.
are.
The
It
state
depends
said
who
it.
you are.
The state said it. It must be true.
They said it.
They said it.
Well, I mean, the first.
What's
thing,
your source?
First thing Sal did wrong is when Roger came to the city, he didn't bring me over because we were talking about shooting a documentary on what's happened with Sal. Okay. I found him to be such an impressive guy, not only because he's a police officer and was serving his people, and which is to me one of the most noble things, like someone in the military who's serving his countrymen. So to hear his story, I got behind it, and I just thought it was obviously politically motivated. So I said he's had these T-shirts. I said, let me buy one of these.
I wonder. That's interesting you say that. My father feels the same way about the police, and I got to be honest, I really don't.
I have to stop real quick. Stop you. I think there's a good cop, like a person who actually is acting like a big brother to the community out there. There's nothing better than that.
Yeah, I agree.
I
actually agree with you. I just don't.
That's how we
believe
should
that's
feel about
them anymore.
All of them?
I don't think we can generalize.
How corrupt are police officers?
I'll tell you what. I'll say this, and I catch hate from this all the time. I had Dominic Izzo. I love Dominic Izzo, and I've had him. And
Good man.
Good man. And I've had him on my show before, and we've gone over this, and Dominic is interesting because he's a police officer who really defends police officers. He goes on the Young Turks and defends police officers, but he hates police officing. So my thing is this: I'll believe in the good cops when they stand up. I
guess, met a lot of them.
Yeah,
through like martial arts and stuff.
Yes, they're good guys individually. Okay. I don't think when push comes to shove, they'll do the right thing. I think they're order followers. I think that this whole pandemic, the lockdowns and the mandates could have been stopped in their tracks if they refused to enforce the rules of these dictatorial governors.
So what were they afraid of? Losing their job?
Yeah. At the end of the day, they hold pensions over people. They hold promotions over people. They hold, these guys got a family. I hate the good German. The idea, I was just following orders. Right. Fuck you, dude.
Right.
Fuck you, for real. So with all due respect, and I know you were a cop for 14 years, and I know there's a lot of police officers that listen to this, I don't think you're a bad guy. Like Mickey said, on an individual level, I'm friends. I'm with one of our good friends down here. One of our good friends. Go out on the pontoon with him. Great guy. But if it comes down to it, I believe they'll follow orders. I don't think that they will do what's right for the citizenry. I think they'll do what's right for the power apparatus.
Maybe the majority.
It only takes a couple of them, man. They'll fuck up everything.
Yep. It's fear. You're afraid. People are afraid. You lose your job, your pension, or you're going to prosecute you as a cop. That's what it is. I was in the same position when I was at a badge. You're afraid if you doing the right thing is easy, but you have people looking over you to say, okay, well, if he's not going to prison, you are. That's the mantra here.
So you or them thing.
It's you or them. That's why I'm telling you, it's a godless environment. They don't believe in anything. They don't want you to. If you even mention anything about,
church, godless environment. It's a
godless environment because they don't believe in anything. I'm a Catholic. I believe in Jesus Christ and the Lord. They don't believe in that. The closest thing, and it's a mockery to them, is they say, "Oh my God" or "Jesus Christ," but they don't mean that. When all those people up top love to see you to be a robot. You're a machine.
Yeah, they believe in the state. They believe in power.
The state and power. That's all they're drunk on. They don't believe in any kind of humanitarian way of approach of life.
Ian Smith, Belmar, New Jersey, owned the gym.
Right.
Yep.
Right? Now, the local cops did the right thing, and they said, you know what? It's his business. People are staying 6 feet apart. They want to work out. God bless. So what they do? Murphy supersedes the local cops, gets the stadies to go in there, throw a padlock on the door, and then all of a sudden the plumbing backs up in the place. First time that's ever happened in the history of the building. And he has sewage all over his floor the next day.
How'd they do that? They send someone in there to sign up and go clog up the toilet?
It's incredible. It's incredible the coincidence that the toilet would just so happen to, you're the man, that would just so happen to
Thank you.
That day of all days, I guess so many people were using the gym. The plumbing just couldn't handle it.
Yeah.
Huh. After he made Murphy look like a clown, crazy. So again, I don't think policemen or women individually are bad people. I think the police are not there for the citizenry. They're there for the boss. I'm in that regard. I'm afraid of them. I'm afraid of them because, like you said, if you're outspoken or if you're on the wrong side of a political, disagreement,
I'm your example.
Look at what they've done, and you're one of them.
I'm just one of them.
Imagine if you're not.
Imagine what they could do. Yeah, exactly.
Imagine if you're just a guy.
And going back to me with the Cardi B thing, because now, because she was there, obviously now all those cops that were there need to be terminated,
right?
Just like you terminated me, because my relationship with Roger was corrosive to the police department if I was continued to be employed by them, because it would have been corrosive because I was friends with Roger. So then 400 recruits and every cop and every civilian member of the police department needs to be terminated along with the police commissioner, because what is their relationship? Is that not corrosive to be pictured with someone who's a convicted criminal? So that's the gist of the lawsuit now in the comparable argument. Now, Eric Adams should be terminating the police commissioner and along with all these other officers. Right. So why is it okay for them to associate with? Because now who's the arbiter of truth here? And if there's a breakdown in community, so if there's a breakdown in rank structure saying the chief made the decision, not the police commissioner, then why is no one being disciplined? Somebody did an order without telling the police commissioner?
Yeah. Plus, dude, they're not meeting their recruiting numbers.
And now you've spent 14 years of your life doing this job, could you and would you want to continue being a police officer elsewhere? Would that be difficult with your termination?
Well, here's the problem, Mickey. I was terminated. So as far as in the eyes of many people that could try to employ you, you were fired. And they look at you as a flunky, a bad guy. If something had to have happened, and just Google your name, oh my God, this guy's got like all
they think you're insubordinate.
Yeah, you got how many articles are written about you? January 6th, you're already a red flag off the bat. And I've
kind of been railroaded and blackballed.
Yeah, that's how I feel. So, listen, I've lost my pension, my job, my savings. I lost many friends. I lost my father. I've lost even love interest, but I haven't lost my faith. My hope and my faith is all you have. That's why every Sunday I go to church and I believe in Jesus and God, and that's what's gotten me through this. So everyone who supports me out there, if you want to go to helpthisnnycop.com,
yeah, how can people support you best?
You go to the website there. You could donate and help me out on all my legal fees.
Legal
I'm
fees,
almost $50,000 right now. Or I could buy a shirt that Ron Barber here, my good friend, is modeling.
I'd love to get you in touch with Scrappy and Ryan. Maybe they could use somebody to do some legal consulting. We have these guys that are good friends of ours down here. They came on. It's probably our most popular podcast to this date, and those guys are vigilantes who are hunting down the
child predators
in the area.
Listen. I support that 100%.
And what's odd, and this goes to what you were saying before, is he's a hacker. All right, and
Ryan,
Ryan's a hacker, and he runs cybersecurity companies. He's on the good side now. He's a white hat. He's all above board. But he's able to find and infiltrate these chat rooms. And then through the chat rooms, they post up as if they're a 13-year-old girl. These guys click the links, and he gets all their IP stuff, and he sees their servers, and they're doing this disgusting shit. And then they present this to the police, and they present it to the DAs. But it's fruit of the poisonous tree. They won't go forward with it. They won't. So he's
because the information was obtained illegally?
Yes.
Even though they're trying to protect children.
Yeah.
They're having the illegal information supersedes the children.
That I'd understand even. I'm like, all right, but now it gets even worse with these guys.
I say fuck that. If you find out something about that, something needs to be done.
Yeah, it's called the fruit of the poisonous tree. Yeah. But now they've figured out ways to obtain the information legally.
Okay.
But it's because they're non-law enforcement. They won't take the information.
You can't do it. It's a technicality because it would in court defense would bring it up. So you're right. You can't do it. You can't bring that up only because it's done illegally. Because people do still have their rights, whether you like them or not. I always bring this up because there's some people we don't like to have. Right now, you have a guy. His name is Trump. A lot of people put him in jail. He has rights. Just like maybe someone that you don't like or someone that they all liked, or let's say, like a Bill Cosby or something, he has rights too, but you want to, don't put him in jail. So that's what it falls under this. It's one rule and one standard, just like my case. One rule and one standard. You can't say, well, we don't like Roger Stone, but Cardi B is good. You can't say that. It's one rule because that rule states you can't associate with someone who's likely to engage in criminal activity. So why is people taking pictures and associating with Cardi B? But Roger Stone's not good.
It shows you how brilliant the founding fathers really were because they lived under a totalitarian king.
Yep.
They lived under a king, and they said, no. Just because you're in the royal family or you're an aristocrat doesn't mean you can do this shit. It's hey, we got this Bill of Rights. All citizens have the right. It comes from the Magna Carta. The Magna Carta, basically they held the king at gunpoint. They were like, hey, we want some rights.
But you just mentioned this, right? So this is how 1776 even started. What he's just mentioning, right? But the police department here and some people in law enforcement are up all the way in the top in different agencies. They think that, something, we're the arbiters of truth. And by the way, we're also the legislators because we're going to ignore court orders and we're just going to step all over your rights and you're not going to do anything about it. That's the mentality of the godless people up top.
I think that's the worst part about it. This goes to what you were saying before, Mick. It's the selective aspect of what are you going to do about it? What are you going to do? That's the shit that...
What are you going to do about it?
That's the stuff
it's gangsterism by law enforcement. The gangsterism is the people running the show. They're the gangsters. What are you going to do about it? What are you going to do about it? You're going to try to sue us?
Going back to Michael Franzese again, Mafia Democracy. Great book you guys should pick up. No free shout-outs. But, he basically... during the Sammy Gravano and Michael Franzese interview I did, that they basically both agreed. They didn't agree on much, but they agreed that the government took care of the mob, got rid of the mob, but kept the corruption.
Correct.
So they're
the new mob.
They got rid of the mafia, but they kept the corruption. They kept the VIGs and gave it to themselves. They kept the levers of power and took the power. It's almost like the Lord of the Rings. It's like throw the ring into the lava. No, why shouldn't I keep it?
And Gerard's a libertarian, so you know that government, we want it to be smaller, not larger. There's so many useless positions right now in so many agencies. Is waste and abuse. And Trump was trying to get rid of all this, and then he tweets out this and that. So let's go get him. We can't have him in office. You have to look at the man's policies and what he was doing, and not so much what you're tweeting. Because does anybody care what Joe Biden is tweeting? In fact, is Joe Biden alive right now? Does he know what time of day it is? Yeah. Are you happy that Joe Biden won? Are you happy that? Well, I don't know if he won, but are you happy Joe Biden is your president?
Is your future in politics so?
I'd tell you the truth, Gerard. I would like to throw my hat in that. I probably could have a future there. I don't know if I would run for office or be behind the scenes, but what I see, I don't like, and I've seen this before. It's called the New York City Police Department. It's called, Federal Bureau of Investigation. It's called the DOJ. They've become the political arm of a politicians or the politicians on top. And there's a ruling class elite that are ruling. They're running this country and they're running the world. They're all globalists. And I'm just saying, why can't we just all come to an agreement? I remember as a kid, you'd be sitting at those cafes on 18th Avenue, even as a kid or when I was a little older, let's say, and I was just sitting around and people would be like, well, I don't really like George Bush. I don't really like the guy either, but I voted for Bill Clinton a couple of years ago. I'm not a Democrat, but you know something? How's that espresso? Yeah, that's great. We should go down the street and go eat. And everybody got along. Who was a Met fan, a Yankee fan?
We were still Americans. Yeah. There was still this idea that we were an American. Whether you were a Democrat or a Republican, there was this idea that you still wanted what was best for America.
And that's what we got to go back to.
You can't have this,
can we go back to
the divisiveness?
The divisiveness of these people is just, listen, look, you want to change things or be an activist, you got to start locally. Locally is how you start. That's how you take things back with the schools. You can't be, or councilmen, this is how you start, not, the president, let me tell you, even if you change the president, you're still going to have there will still be many problems around the country. Yep. And like you just mentioned before with George Soros and all that, he owns a lot of these district attorneys, and those offices will only prosecute certain things, as you've seen in New York City right now, where they're looking for a complete political persecution of the former president of the United States, and people that rob and commit burglaries and punch people in the face are just, decline prosecution. Is that what you want? Because that's where we're headed.
I'm sorry. Republicans got money too. Libertarians got money too. They want a seat at the table, but they don't want to pay for a meal. I'm sick of their whining.
Maybe they're afraid of the online sleuths. Yeah. Oh, no. He's pictured with somebody. Therefore,
I'm going to be canceled. Oh, no.
Guilt by association.
I mean,
it's just like a made-for-TV movie here. Everything's
fear mongering.
But we can't go back. You can't go back to Trump because of what happened. If you go back and Trump is a president again, you've already seen what he did, what happened. Not him, but what the country did, the insanity. And we're experiencing it again right now with today. So the more he comes back in, the more the energy gets ugly between people. When he's out of the spotlight, not so bad.
Well, listen,
I like Trump, but I'm just saying. Okay.
To your point, and Mick and I were actually talking about this off air, the problem is he's going to come back. He doesn't have the specter of re-election hanging over him. Yep. So he can do whatever the hell he wants. And he's going to have vendettas against the CIA, against the FBI, against these people that have 30-year careers. And we just talked about this. When push comes to shove, people in positions of power do everything they can to maintain their power.
That's right. It's all about power.
They're never going to let him back in.
That's all it is.
They're never going to let him back in, and if he gets back in, he's going to have to dismantle the entire system to do it. So I don't think
They're not going to let that happen.
They're not going to go quietly.
Right.
They're not going to let it happen with a fair election. And be like, well, good on you, sir. That ain't going to happen.
I know I wanted to hear what you had to say on why you disagreed with Ron, but you taking up a battle against the police department, such a politically connected structure. I feel like that is quite a fight for you. You know what I mean?
It's definitely an
uphill battle,
it's been
right?
An uphill battle. Of course, we caught him with two things where one thing is an equal protection case, and you're basically being hypocritical in a double standard when there's supposed to be only one standard by saying, well, this person's good and that person's. And then to add on that, they have a commissioner, the deputy commissioner, the deputy commissioner Caban. If you look him up, he was a chief also on the job. His brother was a cop on the job. He was convicted of a crime and terminated. So you're telling me he doesn't associate with his brother?
Sal, forget it. I mean,
you can't see your brother again?
Sal, look, it's New York City. We
Just
all
saying.
associate with people. I mean, come on.
But you terminated me saying that.
It's insanity. I mean, look.
This is the argument. See, you keep going
But there's what's real and there's reality.
Yeah.
Those are two different things in today's world. What judge is going to rule in your favor when he went to law school with the prosecutor and he was hired by the politician that probably squeezed the commissioner to get this Roger Stone loving guy out of here? Like,
so do you fear
people
that
have to
collusion
understand the
and
system.
corruption will be against you? Like that they'll collude kind of against you?
I already saw the police department do it. I saw, obviously this congressional nonsense. That's just crazy that I even got to that level. You would want to believe that you'd get a fair trial if this happened in New York City. It's a federal court, and it's in Brooklyn in the Eastern District. And by the way,
the Eastern District.
You don't want the Southern District.
Yeah, but you think you're going to get a fair trial.
I believe so in front of this judge. I will. May 31st, we're going to have the conference for the discovery in this trial because we've already have the fact.
Now, you're talking also, just so people understand, you're suing them. This is a civil case. This is not
a federal civil case.
Yeah, it's not. You're not bringing up criminal charges against anybody. This is a civil case.
But, of course, when you violate a court order, that could be considered criminal if the judge said so, because that's a contempt of court. So this is the mitigating factors here are how they even terminating me are all under false pretenses.
Are you going to be marching with Black Lives Matter next time?
Actually, they marched when I was a cop. I was actually in the riots trying to defend people. I had a skateboard thrown at me. I'll never forget. And some guy was filming it. I mean, it was a wild time where you're told to stand down. Just don't do anything. Just let them running around. I saw a guy go. They broke into Century 21 and stole all these items. Don't do anything. The guy's just running past like 100 cops. And we're all looking at each other. Don't do anything. That's the order. That's New York City under Bill de Blasio.
Wild.
All those guys got to claim what they looted, right?
That's
all right. You got to claim it on your taxes.
Claim it on the taxes. Yeah.
That's not. No, he's right. I
Seems
just
a
read
little
that.
incriminating.
I just read that the IRS came out and said, "Hey, if you looted more than $1,000, make sure you claim it in your W-9." Like, okay, can you imagine putting down? Yeah, I got 15 Casio 49 inches. I got some Jordans.
That was a wild time. These people, I saw videos. These guys jumping in a car, taking things. They were downtown somewhere in the 6th precinct. I used to those were the places where I would go up and down the street and look for drunk drivers because that was my thing, Then it became a free for all. Who's breaking into the store? Who's coming out with these electronic? I was like, this is they're jumping in the car, and then the guys in the car got out and fought each other over what this guy just looted. It was insane.
Yeah, I feel
this is crazy.
You had a record for drunk driving arrests?
Yes, in 2018 and 19, I was the top cop as far as individual DWI arrests. I was a technician also, so I took care of everything. It was a unit where we enforced DWI. So this is my theory, and it's just I don't know if I do this as a cop. I think this is fair. If I pulled you over for whatever violation was, you made a right turn, you didn't signal, and then I pulled you over and you weren't drunk, I gave you the warning. Don't do this again. You did a good thing not drinking tonight. You be on your way. The NYPD doesn't like that. They want you to be they'll tell you, well, there's no quotas, but believe me,
you're here to generate revenue.
If you don't generate revenue, you'll end up in the Bronx as one of the undesirables, as happened. So I don't believe in writing summonses. I liked criminal court summonses, which was the broken windows theory. You can't have people, congregate in a New York City park at night after 2:00 and light fires and sing Kumbaya where people are trying to sleep across the street. That's a criminal court summons. It used to be anyway. And I used to enforce these things. or, drinking in the street or urinating in the street, which is all legal apparently now. They don't care about anything in New York City. But these are the things I like to enforce. This writing summonses people need a break for stuff like that. If they get a break, they feel good because people are redeemable. Unless you're a murderer, and even a murderer could go to prison and get reformed, even if he's trapped, he's there for the rest of his life. Reform is the way to go. Like you said, we're libertarians, that we believe in. But the police department doesn't. They feel more of a, get this people, get as many as you can. We love this.
Like us
You're
versus
a soldier.
them.
That's the way it is.
Us versus them.
That's the mentality.
This is why I think when push comes to shove, it'll be them.
I used to go inside all these places, cafes, 7-Elevens, and talk to all the store owners. They had my number. They were like, "You're like a community guy, even though you enforce these things. You're still like a neighborhood guy." That's like you have to be.
Yeah.
You don't want to
have a little understanding.
You don't hate everybody out there, and it's hard because trust me, it's even happened to me where that environment, it's the culture, makes you hate others. You even hate other cops, and other cops hate you, which is why they didn't write those letters against you. So it's just the entire environment.
What's the cliche is when you're trained to be a hammer, all you see are nails.
That's right.
You
see nails everywhere. Doesn't matter who. I mean, you could walk into a building, and, it's it's one of the precincts or commands you're working, and everyone's a cop, but yet you're like, I hate that guy. Why? You just hate him. Why were you even thinking this? Because it's just the environment. Yeah. It's just negative. There's nothing positive about being in that
never do it. I couldn't do the job for even a day. Somebody went sniffing around my shit. That's it. We're at hands.
And I tell you, that's why you think these, unfortunately, you see like suicides amongst people in law enforcement. That's what it is. It's a negative environment. Environment is just, you're punished for stupid things. We're going to destroy you if you don't listen to us. It's never like, and if they tell you, come to us with something, no, you don't come with them. If you even mention something, you'll be ridiculed. People make fun of you. They'll make these little drawings and put them on the wall.
Really?
They'll be in the bathroom to write your name. These are the things that happen.
Was it always like this, or did it change at some point?
No, it's always been like that. You'll go to your locker, you'll write something stupid on your locker. I mean, people have feelings. You got to understand, people have rough life. It's already bad enough you're spending 8 hours a day doing this. Quite possibly, unnecessary overtime, as I call it. Like standing on a corner, I don't know if that does anything. Maybe it does in some crime-riddled places. I was always one to say, I'd rather be in a car rolling around than if I see something jump out and just grab the guy and lock them up. But what do I know, right? I'm a flunky in their eyes, apparently. So,
well, actually, I would like to know what you know. How would you change policing? You were on the job for 13 years. You did it in the biggest city in America. What could be done differently and what could be done better?
Number one, you have to be closer with the communities. You work for them, not the other way around. And then there's none of this knee-jerk reaction. I saw this cop and he beat this guy up, whatever. Okay, where's the film? Do I have film of this? So you look at your body camera right away. There's no, I'm suspending the officer, none of this stuff. Because you know what? A lot of people out there, they're liars. Cops are liars. I understand some cops lie about the, but the civilians lie a lot. Yep. And you also have to be held accountable. If you make some kind of bogus report, this officer touched me a certain way and it's not true, you should be locked up. You committed a felony. You perjured yourself. Why is not that? I go, that's never happening. That's never happened. The cop that did what he said I was security, he perjured himself. Why isn't he being investigated? These are simple things that should be happening. Not that I wish that, because be honest, I don't really care at this point. I pray for everybody. But these are certain things that if you go down these avenues, you could correct. You need to be closer with the communities. These people are not animals, even if you think they are. Some of them are, some of them aren't. You just got to weed them out. But you're there to protect the people and be there for the people. You're not there to serve yourself or serve some inspector or captain or someone up there to make him. All that guy cares about is getting his rank because he wants to be part of the club. You be in a club. Once you're in the inspector, chief, now this is the club. They're in a club and you're not in it. And they feel it's just like being a congressman. This is the club. You get it? It's the same structure. You notice? And the FBI be the same thing. You have the special agent in charge. You have the regular. So you're a GS up to 15, and then you become an IS. So it's a club. It's and this is what divide. Everything's always division.
Protecting and serving the community, it's protecting and serving the club.
That's it. You're protecting and serving the club.
The interest of the powerful, I would imagine.
And that's what this is what that deal was when Holmes got moved. It's basically, we're going to take care of you. Just keep your mouth shut about this because they're obviously something is going on where there's no way the police commissioner doesn't know about any of that stuff. There's just no way. It doesn't happen like that in the police department. We're going to find out in the court. But for everyone out there that's watching, they should know, like, there's a lot of kabuki theater going on with all of these police departments. No one's ever just forthright coming with the truth.
What are your thoughts on, like, the informant culture in NYPD? If somebody is committing crimes, but they're cooperating with the police, and you know they're committing these crimes, but they're able to stay out on the streets.
I don't agree with that either. That's totally a hypocritical thing. And as Stone's rules, as Roger puts in his book, hypocrisy gets them. You can't say some informant, okay, so the informant's sitting there and saying, okay, I have information on so-and-so. Meanwhile, what are you doing? You dealing drugs? And we're just going to let this guy.
Whitey Bulger's running a whole criminal empire, but he throws a couple of nuggets to FBI
he gets away, agent. That's a Boston thing. Boston's quite the corrupt town. So,
it's not like NYPD is the shining capital on the hill here.
No, Boston, yeah,
just little Molotov cocktail at Boston.
Yeah, right.
Sal, what are your thoughts on Trump? You didn't agree that with Ron when he said that he thought it would be the same divisive environment.
No, the country already is almost kind of divided with the way they are. I still think conservatives or libertarians would be the majority. You just have the people in power, which are small. They make it seem as if that other side is, but a lot of them are also don't have a job and are online, like online sleuths looking for pictures of people and guilt by association and stuff. So that's that other side, which is insane. You should go to church maybe and start finding the Lord in your life, because I don't know who has the time to do that. So Trump, you got to see, this guy is the one guy who's out there out of all these politics. We talked about Mayor Nightlife, right? Eric Adams with his suits, and he learned how to double talk out of both sides of his mouth as a captain, because in the NYPD, that's the culture. When you're on top, you're like a politician. Donald Trump has never been a politician. He's never been a politician. This guy is. Watch any kind of press conference with him. Everything just rolls naturally. He just talks to people. He's just the way he is. Ron DeSantis or Eric Adams sit there, and if they have one question you don't like, all of a sudden they're rattled. They can't handle anything that's not in a controlled environment. Most politicians can't.
That was one thing I liked about Trump, was that it was like a breath of fresh air. It was a split from the normal politician.
He's so real. It's so real. It's blinding you. He's so real. Everyone else, all these other politicians, you could name them.
DeSantis doesn't get rattled. That was a category.
He doesn't get rattled. Well, hold on. When they asked him,
categorically a true statement.
When Charlie Crist,
you just perjured yourself.
Well, no, Charlie.
Go to church and repent.
Charlie Crist was asking him if he was going to run, even though he would be for governor. All of a sudden, he's doing that little head bob because he doesn't know how to answer. Because the answer was yes. Yes, he's running. He just didn't want to say that
because he knew cherry pick. That's a
because
cherry
he would
pick.
Lose that election. Unfortunately,
yeah.
I voted for the guy. Nothing against him. I like a lot of his policies. I think he's a very popular guy. I think he should back off because he would have never been the governor had Donald Trump not endorsed him. So that's a whole other story.
He should back off and let my guy walk in.
No, well, you know what? Listen. It's called. This is what loyalty is and respect is. And when you kind of go against that, you'll see that. Some things will go against you.
It sounds like you're stumping for the powerful here, man. Here we are talking about how the system screws worthwhile people, and now you're talking about the powerful need to be bowed down to because they're powerful.
Trump isn't the powerful. Trump is the man in the arena. He is the people's champion. To see this guy they're trying to prosecute this guy. So this case was
I'll tell you this.
Tried by the feds, and they dropped it and said there's no case here.
I've never seen anybody.
This is crazy.
I've never seen anybody poked, prodded. He's either the greatest gangster of all time, Trump, where he's Teflon. He's literally the Teflon Don, or he literally didn't do anything wrong. These people have been trying to get this cat on something for 8 years.
And speaking of that, for those who don't know, including myself, what exactly is Trump going to be arrested for tomorrow?
Paying off a prostitute.
Campaign finance violations.
Yeah.
Paying off a
allegedly.
Paying off Stormy Daniels to not talk. It's a misdemeanor.
Which,
if it even occurred.
Which Michael Cohen went to prison for this federally. If anybody's guilty here, he already did 3 years or whatever it was that he did. So I want to know. Listen, I've been.
So this crime has already been prosecuted.
Technically, they dropped it. Nobody wanted to prosecute. Even the feds had this. 5 different prosecutors went through this and said no. But Now you want to bring this up now conveniently at this point?
Yeah.
And I just want you to know, if this ever made it to a trial, I don't know how this makes it, but you want Michael Cohen, he went to jail for perjury. So this guy already known is a liar. He was a terrible lawyer, right? You want this guy on the stand saying, I saw this, I did that, because I don't know if any juror I would sit there and go, how do I believe this guy? He's another guy that talks out of both sides of his mouth. And then if you're gonna really bring in a porn star, I don't know how that's gonna go over. Especially when you have Christians and people as jurors, I don't know how that's gonna go over, because she lost the defamation case against Donald Trump. So now you're saying what she's saying is true. How is that?
Stormy, since you're listening, you're welcome to come on Slick and Thick and tell your side of the story anytime you want. Also, Tara Reid, who took to Twitter yesterday lambasting.
This isn't the American Pie actress?
Not the American Pie actress.
That's her name, right?
Tara Reid, yeah,
so.
Tara Reid, who was phenomenal in American Pie and less so in Sharknado. This is Tara Reid, who was a Senate intern, I believe, who has accused Joe Biden of sexual misconduct with her, and was lamenting on Twitter that no prosecutor will even review her case, which is, again, if we're going to go, I would love for every single politician to be under investigation at all times. I would love every single one of these. I want the whole thing coming down, because we can't have a country based on corruption. We just can't. We can't have a country where a bank goes under and we bail it out within 24 hours while an entire half of a state is being poisoned and can't get any emergency funds.
That's right.
We can't continue to function in this way. We can't continue to function where we're giving $1 billion to the Ukraine while people fall asleep every night hungry in the inner cities in America. We can't do it, right? This is like late stage empire shit. And the only way this happens is through reform. And the only way reform happens normally...
It's a revolution. Well, I say that's why I thought we're going to have a depression. We're going to have a depression. Well, maybe that'll be the best thing to happen to us is we have a depression.
I don't know about that.
Well, and then people get back to their real morals and get back, like you're talking about, you don't want corruption. You can't get into politics and not get involved in that, the corrupt nature of how that goes. You can't become a police officer and not get into what that corruption is, or else you will be cast out. That's just you can't get into corporations and follow their rules unless it starts getting dirty. That's just the way, it's kind of the way capitalism, the way America's gone. I'm not sure if it's always been this way, but it sure feels like that. It feels like that. So, I don't think this stuff is going to change. It's just going to maybe have a different form, a different shape. But it's going to keep going that way, and whoever wants to stay on it, they will be the strong who survive, and the rest of people who are moral will get kicked out, and then they have to figure out how they're going to make money again. And that's why everybody's afraid of not ratting. The word's not even ratting. Whistleblowing, or just telling the truth, really telling the truth. I can't tell you how many jobs I had where I just said, "Let's have it out right now," what just happened, and then I was lied to, and I was like, "Well, it's because you're too truthful. I've been told I'm too truthful."
Yeah,
it's better to tell the truth though.
It's better, and then you got to go look for a job, and then you got to look for another job and another one. Then they go, "Why do you need a job?" Oh, because you're talking back, because you're that guy that's always on the opposite side of the argument of just letting the status quo and just go with the flow. Let sleeping dogs lie.
You're right, and that permeates throughout society. I mean, you look at something like the UFC. You would think that is as pure of combat. Competition, whoever deserves it gets it, but in the same situation, it's like, hey, if you're hurt, you don't get paid. So you got to take the fight, whether you're hurt or not. You got to go. You got to, you can't be honest all the time, right? I mean, if you're going to go in there and be like, well, I'm a little banged up, and then not get the payday, you just got to go out and wear it, right? I mean,
sure.
I mean, it's no different.
Well, look what happened to Trump when he spoke the truth all the time, or at least attempted to. Destroyed. I mean, in every way possible. So you knew that. My God, he's talking about taking down the swamp. He didn't take down any swamp, and he never would take down. He couldn't take down it. You just can't take down. I mean,
that's hard.
Honestly, it's nice to say it. Why we don't like it?
Why they really hated him so much? Really, when we really get down to it, is because
tweeted too much.
No, he literally abused the system.
No question.
He abused the system, and then came out and said this system is rigged. And they're like, well, how do you know that? Because I am part of the rigging.
He's too good.
I do it.
Too funny.
And if you don't want it, change it. But I'm telling you, it's rigged.
We don't deserve Donald Trump. We deserve Joe Biden. That's our country. That's what we deserve.
Oh my God.
The country gets Joe Biden.
We all get the life we deserve. Look, I don't want to believe that. I don't want to believe that, Ron, because then we do get into that slippery slope of then there is no reason to be good. If there's no value in being moral, why would anybody be moral? If there's no value in being noble, why would anybody be noble?
Are you even going to get a free and fair election in 2024? I don't know.
No, not with Trump.
Well, you guys think it's going to be who cheats better?
Who's going to be the winner? Listen, you keep seeing the same patterns developing. Like Philadelphia has more votes than registered voters. You can't even say this. Oh, we'll come and they're going to put you through the trial through the media, guilt by association if you even say that, and then I don't know, you might get a knock on your door. Did you say that there's more votes than registered voters? Actually, there is, but well, now you have to come with us. Like you can't even mention, but it's a fact if you look it up. Philadelphia, one of the most corrupt counties in the history of the United States as far as voting goes. Las Vegas, another county, is the same. Maricopa. I mean, he had a treasurer of the state was in charge of the election in Arizona. How is that even
overseeing their own election for people?
How is that legal? How's that legal? That's like saying I'm the judge, the jury, and the executioner all at the same time.
But again, I have actually a more optimistic viewpoint on this since going to Florida. You can change these things on a local level. You really can. You can go to Florida and say, you know what? You win. Have it. Have Brooklyn. Turn it into a commie paradise. Don't care. Enjoy the rats on the ground and the snow in the air.
You're giving up ground and like it just you can't.
Who cares?
Well, yeah.
Where's your family from?
We were born. We're from Sicily.
Why aren't you in Sicily right now?
I know Sicily. Italy now is becoming a good country now. Actually, under conservative leader there.
My family, they were like, these fucking ground ain't growing no fucking potatoes. Gone. Sometimes greener pastures, bro.
I know.
Sometimes you got to consolidate power, let the thing happen. If you're not going to fight or you don't have the capacity to fight, you don't have the knowledge, the willingness, or the resources to fight, peace.
Right. Sun Tzu.
Why fight?
Sun Tzu, The Art of War.
That's it. I'm going to go down to paradise. Why fight it?
Right.
I'm not going to be a martyr for the cause. You're like these guys want to protest tomorrow. You guys want to protest tomorrow, and then we'll go to the comments real quick. You guys want to protest tomorrow out in New York, and you want to get arrested and be a martyr for the cause?
No way.
Why?
If anybody's going to do anything like that, listen, if you're going to protest, I hope that it's civil, legal, and peaceful.
But give the Democrats credit.
And don't get seen with
Give
Roger
the Democrats credit. When the protests were happening, the BLM riots were happening, everybody in Hollywood, every one of these Democrats, what did they do? They got on Twitter. They created a fund. They created a bail fund. They created an organization. They're like, hey,
there's nobody Republican.
You get hemmed up. You get hemmed up, burning the city to the ground in my name. I got your back. And they took over every city in America.
Yep.
It was a takeover, a hostile takeover of this nation.
They wanted it.
Painted their flag. Yep. They painted their flag 100 yards long in front of the capital of every fucking city that matters in this country.
In Portland, Oregon, right? Didn't they have those federal agents in the building try to burn that building down?
Portland, Oregon.
Yeah.
Portland, Oregon.
But you going to tell me the Koch brothers can't put together a fund? The Republicans lose because the Republicans deserve to lose.
They don't want it enough.
Libertarians don't have a say in this country because they don't put their money on the table.
They say it was stolen. The election was stolen. I remember playing tennis with this guy once, and I called a ball out that was questionable. But my friend said, if you're not stealing, you're not trying. So I was like, interesting, And you're not cheating, you're not trying, right? Cheating, whatever.
The greatest fighter of all time gets two eye pokes a fight.
Oh my God!
He's just fighting his distance. Hey, listen, the rules are there; they exist for a reason.
Hey, in my case, the rules are there, but they're only arbitrarily applied.
Arbitrarily applied.
Victim of guilt by association.
That's it. Guilt by association. That's the whole mantra here.
Omri, what do we got in the comments, bud?
Yeah, we got a couple questions. This first one is another one for Runaway Slav. It goes to you, Sal. Can you talk a little bit about what diversity of thought you see in terms of gun owner, like private gun ownership inside police departments? Because They say that they see like some sheriffs are like, I'm not going to enforce any gun laws, and then some of them are just waiting to take them.
I see as far as New York City goes, and New York State, you're going to have the upper regions of New York State would definitely probably not go against the Constitution versus New York City, where they would be jumping up and down saying, we're going to confiscate all the guns. You'd probably break down into who's really more of a conservative county or town and what is a liberal or Democrat county or town. Because the sheriffs, some sheriffs are, they believe in the Constitution and know that you can't just confiscate people's guns. That's insane. They even think they're going to round people up. But that's like Nazi Germany kind of stuff. But you will find some of the sheriffs and some people in law enforcement that are like, oh, we'll do this because they want to be, like you said, they're godless and they just believe in the state. Oh, they told me to do it, so I'm going to do it. Yeah, that's great. We're going to do whatever they tell us to do, and hopefully I could get to the end of my career with my pension, or I'll be more powerful and I'll join the elite. That's what you have. That's what law enforcement is in a nutshell. Me personally, I would never enforce that. In fact, I think they try to make gun-free zone or whatever it was in Times Square. You should be allowed in this country. You have a Second Amendment right? Now, I'm not a big gun buff. I just know that, listen, you have that right. We have that right in the state, right? This state in Florida, we have that where you can carry. You just go and get your carry permit, and they'll give it to you as long as you don't have a record or you're not a felon. So why are we now trying to say, well, you're a licensed gun owner, but we're going to take your guns? But see that gang of people over there that like, that listen to WAP and all that? Those guys are allowed to keep their guns. And if they shoot somebody, we're going to let them out of prison. And that's how New York City works. That's how Chicago works.
Middle-class 18-year-old white women listen to WAP, not gangsters.
Anybody who thinks they're a gangster.
I listen to WAP because it's a bop.
I'm using it as an example. But any of these, any rap song you hear is always talking about the GAT. We got to shoot them up. They're basically instigating you.
So, in fairness, there's a whole lot of country music that's like, I got my gun out my dog's asshole. Yeah.
I'm just saying. That's what I think.
What else you got there, Aubrey?
And then the next question, this one's from Wrecking It. He's asking if you have some gritty New York City cop horror stories that you're interested in sharing.
Let's see, gritty horror stories. Is that concerning other police officers or anything in the street?
Anything in the street. Go back to your days as as an apprentice for the mob.
Yeah, an apprentice.
Speaking of that actually
you're learning.
That's kind of you asked the other day, Ron. So the impetus of like me and Gerard's friendship was I was watching, like I'm like a little bit of like a mafia junkie. Like I love the movies, I love the stories, and I was watching a Sammy the Bull podcast, and Gerard was on it. And that was when I've listened to thousands of podcasts. The only person I ever reached out to after was Gerard, because he was talking his politics and he was making it very palatable and like interesting, and just it made sense. You know what I mean? The stuff he was talking. And then it turns out he picked against me at the CM Punk fight. But whatever.
Oh, wow.
I find
really?
he lost out there.
I lost like 1,500 on that. I thought it was a work though. I was like, they're gonna get this good looking kid from Jersey, and CM Punk's gonna beat him up a little bit, and then the next fight's gonna be a lot of money. I thought it was like a Jake Paul type thing. Fucking anyway, 36 seconds into that, I was like, fucking, this is brutal.
I wondered with your growing up, any interesting stories or run-ins and stuff like that with mob figures.
Growing up, I hate to say this. I don't know if I should say this. You mentioned the character Sammy the Bull. I'm going to tell you, I did not know who this man was until I saw him testifying in front of a jury in 1992, and I could tell you many people that don't know who he was.
So you're saying he wasn't as prolific of a figure?
He may not have been as big as he's making himself out to be. I'm just telling you, I was in Bensonhurst. I never heard of this guy until he was on the screen.
He was underboss, though.
Allegedly. I don't know about that whole, I don't know how they structure their family or whatever, but I mean, later on you hear all these things now. You see how he was, his whole past and his criminal, but he's he's voting now, right? Is he allowed to vote? Because I think he votes Republican.
I think he does. Yeah, he does.
So
he does. Yeah.
He did. He is a reformed criminal in my book. I'm all for it.
Yeah.
But I'm just saying, growing up, we never heard of his name.
Really?
And I was in the same, I guess, these cafes.
But you had heard of other people's names?
Of course, I would say John Gotti would be a name that was thrown around a lot in the neighborhood because of the stature of who he was.
Huh.
So John Gotti was, people understood, if you see this guy, he's you know who he is. But he didn't come around. I mean, now he passed away. I never saw John Gotti in person. And I grew up in Brooklyn. I was there at least till 1989. I was 7, 8 years old. I would go around with my father, and again, we never really heard his name mentioned, or he never came to the neighborhood. I never saw him. I understand that he did come to the neighborhood at some point, but me as a kid, I never ran into him. Now, later on, as a cop, as I became a cop, some figures you might know, like I used to work in Brighton Beach, and there were plenty of these Russian or Ukrainian or whatever they are, these figures that were like considered organized crime. I actually pulled a few of them over. I think one of them I actually locked up. He was actually believed to be in the federal case. And like a couple of weeks later, I saw his name in the newspaper. Like, that guy was DWI. So I stopped some big Russian gangster and put him in as a DWI, which is crazy. And so when
you were a young cop coming out of there, did they ever try to like recruit you? Did they ever try to get you to come on their side, on their,
No, I think these people, the neighborhood always liked me because I'm a people's person. I try to I want to do the right thing by people. But as far as organized crime figures goes, later on as a cop, the most you would see is the Russian ones, and you would just stay away. If you don't want to crisscross, it's more, if you see them in the street, there's nothing you could do. But I never want to associate with any of these people. But you would know where they are and who they are, and sometimes as you work in the command, you would want to keep an eye on these places. Say if anything happens, it's going to be whatever it is, whatever the guy's name is, or this place belongs to these people. So just look out. There's a place I believe on like Coney Island Avenue. It was like that. It was forgot the name of it, but it was always a problem there. If it's people fighting, there could be organized crime figures there from the Russians. So you always had to keep an eye, and just as long as nobody got killed or there was no assaults, you'd be okay. But then I would always get a drunk driver. So before the end of the night, I wasn't even there because I would be bringing a guy back to the precinct. So that's how the life was. But growing up, Bensonhurst was definitely John Gotti's name. Everybody knew who he was. Luckily, I never ran into him. But I've never heard Samuel Bull's name until I saw him on television when he was testifying.
Even as a police officer, you did?
As a police officer, yes. I'm saying as my time in
growing up.
As you get older, yes, then you find out, yeah, you know.
So
are you think he's embellishing his role?
Quite
allegedly?
Allegedly, there's a lot. There's a lot to go on with Samuel Bull. Some people say he's this, some people say he's that. I think, has he paid his debt to society is the question. I mean, he spent how many years in prison?
Probably like 20.
20 years.
Yeah, like 20 years in prison. He spent a long time in prison for a guy, whatever they said he did. He murdered people. He was a Shylark. He did all these things. But, he paid his debt to society. In my book, he's 80 years old now?
Something like that.
I'd say
he's a tough, intimidating 80-year-old man.
He's a tough guy. He's an old school kind of guy.
You spent a lot of time with him in doing Mafia State.
I want to say a lot of time, but spent enough time. You know what's interesting?
Is there like 10 hours of filming?
He's got some great stories. No, 30,
of course,
40
he does have.
He's a great storyteller. I tell you what, man.
I've seen his podcasts are very interesting. He's he telling stories. He remembers it like it was yesterday. Now, I don't know if all of that is true.
Might have misremembered.
He could have, as Roger Clemens clearly said one time in front of Congress, I may have misremembered. It's unknown because, you're only hearing one side of the story, So I don't know. I mean, it's a long time
Some of the
ago.
people aren't there to say their piece.
That's right. People aren't alive anymore to say anything. You can't crisscross and call, say, hey, wait a minute, that may or may not have happened. So and then, of course, there's a whole case he had with the government, and government got involved, and obviously then John Gotti, which is funny because, I think Rudy Giuliani was trying to prosecute this man. And how many missed trials did he have, John Gotti?
Talk about John Gotti?
Yeah, like 4 or 5.
Well, yeah. Well, Sammy claims to have rigged all those juries for John.
So if he's rigging these juries, there was a 4 or 5 of them, right?
Yeah, the Teflon Don.
Now you see all this effort they put in. Now, what about that? They're going after these guys that were like 1,000 feet from the Capitol on January 6th, and this person was waving a flag, and they sent 30 guys to the house. Were they doing that for John Gotti when they knew this guy was a drug dealer and he's a menace in the neighborhood? They fought 4 or 5 trials, missed trial. Come on, that's where you question everything right there. I mean, this is Whitey Bulger. He was an informant that lived forever. God knows how many guys he got. What about who was that other guy?
Would have been more fair if you had stayed in the Russian mob, huh?
The Russian mob. you got to stay away from those guys. There was another guy. He was the Grim Reaper. Remember?
Scarpa.
So Scarpa. Here's a guy that was working for the feds, whacking people all over the neighborhood, and nobody said anything about that.
Went down to Mississippi.
I grew up in Old Bridge, New Jersey. My father moved out in the early 90s. 2 houses
from
over.
Brooklyn.
Yep, 2 houses over. Greg Scarpa, and then 3 houses
God.
over. 3 houses over. Nick Sacco, FBI agent.
Just
I come home one day
a
from
melting
school.
pot.
Yeah, I'm in 5th grade. There's cop cars everywhere. My mom grabs me by the collar. We gotta get out of here. My dad's like, "What the fuck did I move to Jersey for? This is."
he's a funny part. He just mentioned he had the FBI agent and Greg Scarpa right across the street, right? So technically, he would be associating with someone who's likely to have engaged in criminal activity, right?
Right. You wave to him while you're going to get your paper.
Now, do you see how ridiculous that rule is? If you really look at it, look how ridiculous. So a federal agent lives across the street from a informant / killer.
I would find it
Lindell Vecchio, the famous line. Hey, we're gonna win this thing.
Yeah.
It would be so difficult. Like in the MMA world, there's a lot of outlaw types. So there's also we have cops in the gyms as well.
Yeah.
So would that mean a cop would have to leave the? There's plenty of people who.
That's what I'm saying.
I just came back from a gig in Daytona Beach for Bike Week. One of the interesting things in the world was seeing the leathers on the back, and it's PD this, that Scottsdale Police Department, and over here, Hell's Angel Outlaws. And I'm like, these guys are just hanging out at the bar together. Bike Week, man. It's like a détente. Yeah, I listen. Association is what it is. All right, I get it. You don't want corruption. You don't want to facilitate an environment of corruption. I understand, perhaps.
But you just mentioned a key word. You don't want the environment of, let's say, corruption. But are you assisting in any furtherance of any crime? That's the main goal here. Just because you know somebody doesn't mean now you're helping them commit crime. If you're not doing any of that, you just happen to know the guy. Then
it's also kind of
like a silly rule.
It's also very telling that we're comparing Roger Stone to John Gotti and Sammy the Bull Gravano.
The way they want to paint him is to be worse than that. Or like I saw this morning, they were putting guardrails in front of the DA's office. The last time I saw that, El Chapo was being brought into New York City. They shut down the Brooklyn Bridge. I remember it like it was yesterday. I said, why is it like a ghost town? What is all this action here? And they told me, you didn't know? Like, what? El Chapo. What do you mean El Chapo's here? They brought Chapo here. I saw that there was government cars, and they brought him from Brooklyn. I don't know what exactly they were bringing him here. So all these guardrails, I go, yeah, it's hard for you to get in. And even with my ID, because I was a cop, I had a case. I'm like, what is this? El Chapo is here. So this is what I'm saying. So they shut everything down for El Chapo. Now they're doing the same thing because I don't know what they have planned.
For El Maga.
The king of MAGA.
Do you have, Omri, do we have one more comment from the thread we want to get in?
Yeah, I have one more question. This is from Mr. Misak Chotit.
Nice. What's happening, bud?
His question is, do you think that the BLM riots could have counted as an act of terrorism because they had political backing?
Listen, if you want me to answer that, I'd say it right away. 100% that's domestic terrorism at its finest. Anyone that doesn't prosecute that, you should really look in the mirror at yourself and say, why aren't you doing that? There's obviously political implications. There's probably donations going through people's pockets. There's a lot of games they play behind closed doors. But if you're a prosecutor and you look at it that way, then maybe you're in the wrong line of business. And I understand. Listen, people make their own decisions, and they're doing things that are good for their career, or they're fearful of things. I have no judgment, but I'm just saying, maybe you're in the wrong line of business. If you got in this business to try to do the right thing, and you're letting that go on, and now you want to say that grandma waving her flag on a lawn somewhere should be in prison for 25 years. I don't know. That screams of hypocrisy and double standards to me.
Yeah. And listen, I was walking through when the protests were happening. I had shows in St. Louis. I had shows in Indianapolis. And one of the saddest things in the world was seeing the signs up on the businesses like, we support Black Lives Matter. We support hate has no. And it was basically like putting the red blood over the wall, over so that it would pass over and not kill the first child.
I say this because if you protest, that's fine. As long as you're not throwing a Molotov cocktail, that's the problem. It's the violence.
No, I'll tell you.
No violence.
I'll tell you what else is the problem.
Peaceful.
The problem is when you protest at where you should protest, which is the seat of government, that's considered terrorism.
Yeah.
But when you protest in front of a business or you loot a business, that's just angst and anger and all this other thing. So the business people aren't the people that are suppressing or repressing anybody, folks. It's the government. So oddly enough, it's a peaceful protest as long as you loot a Target and you burn down a mom and pop cafe. But where you cross the line with this corrupt government that we have is when you bring it to their doorstep.
Yeah.
They don't care what you do as long as you're killing somebody else's dream and finances, but bring it to their doorstep, now you're a terrorist.
I'll tell you a quick story. So, I was in New York City a couple of weeks ago. We had an event. It was called Martini Night with Roger Stone. So me and Roger in New York City, the New York Young Republicans had this event. We were having it in Little Italy in my friend's place. And this is truly a divine act of the Lord here. 80 protesters, or you want to call them agitators or whatever, were lined up outside screaming for blood, blocking the entrance to the restaurant. It's just, same old. As me and Roger get into our vehicle to go, which is about 20 15 minutes away, it begins to rain hellaciously. So that's a divine act happens of just the rain comes down. They all dispersed, and as we show up, it stops raining, and there's only one or two people saying something that they said, you should be in jail. Some old grandlady, some old grandma or something. Roger just walks in, goes straight in the place. Me and him get him, and all that negative, all these people were gone.
Yeah, you know what? I respect
greatest
that. Like,
events
I'll
I've ever
protest.
been at.
I respect it. I'll protest, but only if it's not an inconvenience. I'm not getting wet for my views.
But why are you blocking the entrance? What is your problem? Why are you trying to shut this guy's business down?
To intimidate you.
There's nothing.
To intimidate you.
That I don't agree with that. You want to protest is one thing. Keep it's legal, but don't be blocking someone's business. Don't be blocking the doors because that's anarchy. Why do you want anarchy? Because they're godless people.
And with that, Mick, you got any last statements?
No, very interesting. Thanks for sharing your story with us. We got to get you back on. I feel like we could go longer, but especially in the wake of the discovery and all that you have coming up. Wish you the best. And one more time, how can people support you?
Well, listen, you could support me by going to helpthisnYcop.com. Like I said, you could give a small donation, or you want to buy a shirt. That really goes a long way. But your prayers and your support is what's really making a difference here, because what seemed insurmountable at one point now seems inevitable. It'll be a straight battle all the way to the end with this. And I like to say this. I have no ill will towards anyone I mentioned today, whether it was Cardi B, Sammy the Bull, Michael Francis. I'm an actual fan of the guy because he does like cops and he's a big fan. So, Mike, I love what you're doing out there if you're listening. I pray for everybody, and I believe people can be reformed, and that's how I am, and that's what the Lord wants, and I walk with Christ, and that's why I believe that people could be redeemed. Even if it looks like it's impossible, it is not inevitable.
Yep. Well said. Well said. All things are possible through Rudy'sFlowersWI.com. That's Rudy'sFlowersWI.com. This has been Slick and Thick. I'm Gerard Michaels. That's the great Mickey Gall. This has been Sal Greco, and we will see you guys Friday at 1 p.m.